Memorial Day, a day that we pause to remember all of the men and women who laid down their lives in defense of this great nation. My name is Taylor Strong. I am the wife of Sergeant Charles Strong. On September 15, 2014, I woke up on a beautiful fall day, not knowing my world would be turned upside down that very afternoon. My husband was headed out on a final turnover mission with his team in Afghanistan, and thankfully he called me before he left. He was checking in to see how everything was going and just wanted to let me know that he loved me. I informed him that I was headed down to Wilmington for a pregnancy checkup. I was pregnant with our first daughter, Sophie, at the time. I am incredibly grateful that he took the time for that call and those last I love yous. I didn't know then that it would be the last time I spoke to Charles. Later that day, I was informed that Charles's life had come to an end during an attack that had occurred just an hour after we spoke. To say that I was in shock was an understatement. I woke up with plans of getting ready for a homecoming and decorating a nursery for a new baby girl, to that very same evening sitting at my dining room table planning a funeral for my husband with a casualty officer. You see, this is the reality of Memorial Day, and this is why we pause to remember. Our fallen service members are people with lives, families, hopes, dreams, and aspirations. They aren't just a picture and a name. Our loved ones are everything that they accomplished during this time that they were here and everything that they weren't afforded the opportunity to do. It is our duty as Americans to always remember that fact. I could continue to talk to you all about what life has been like for me following the death of Charles, but to be honest, I'd rather tell you more about the man that he was. I can honestly tell you, I have come to understand just how special of a human being Charles was. I have been given a very unique opportunity to hear stories about my husband, gather memories, and I've come to understand him in a very unique way. It's incredibly difficult to put someone into words when they were just as special as Charles was. He was an extraordinary human being. Charles was the true definition of a warrior. He was positively relentless in any and all pursuits that involved his Marine Corps career. And even though he obtained his dream of becoming a critical skills operator with the Marine Special Operations, his purpose within the Corps was deeper than any title or rank. I will never forget one evening Charles and I were sitting and chatting on our patio as we often did, and I turned to him and said, "Why do you do this? Why do you serve? What is your purpose?" He looked for a minute and mulled it over, and he looked off into the distance as if he could see further than what was in front of him. And he said, "I fight for those who can't fight for themselves." That answer was almost difficult to take in as it felt so incredibly profound to me. Here I am, sitting next to this man in nowhere, North Carolina, and he is so driven with purpose and passion for his profession. I felt humbled to even be sitting next to him, let alone be his wife. I've come across the quote many times recently by G.K. Chesterton, which says, "The true soldier, and in this case, Marine, fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him." That was truly the case for Charles. He was a warrior for peace. Charles, had an incredible spirit and would have given the shirt off of his back. He was loving, quick to forgive, and genuinely kind. He was willing to risk his life for others. It was ingrained in him as if it was a part of his very own DNA code. Outside of the Marine Corps, Charles had many talents, including making people laugh with his silly antics, working on motorcycles. He could take basically anything apart and put it back together. If anyone's seen Major Payne, the scene where he's hanging upside down in his closet, blindfolded, taking a rifle apart and putting it back together, yeah, that was Charles. Charles stood at about 6'2" and was roughly 220 pounds depending on the day or season. He was a big guy and more than certainly looked the part of a Special Operations Marine. In fact, his teammates joked that he was the poster boy for MARSOC. But to all of us, he was kind and a gentle soul, and he had the best laugh. It certainly had to be my favorite part about him. Just a few months before Charles was to leave on his deployment to Afghanistan, we found out we were expecting a baby, which was a complete surprise and shock to both of us. That surprise, who has become the greatest blessing of my life, is my sweet daughter Sophie. Charles was over the moon when he learned we were having a little girl. Unbeknownst to me, he had packed cigars in his sea bag in preparation to finding out the gender. He handed them out to his team that night and excitedly told everyone, "I'm having a girl. Her name is going to be Sophie," which I found out later, and it made me laugh because when his teammates told me, I was a little surprised because I was under the impression that we were keeping the name a secret. Charles was so excited about his baby girl. He spent time on that deployment online shopping and sending clothes home, hats, shoes, shirts, onesies. He was fully ready for his most important mission yet, to be a father to his little princess. It pains me that Charles never got the chance to meet his perfect little girl, who is his spitting image, but I have no doubt that he is watching over her and guiding her with his love and spirit. Sophie speaks about Charles as if she's met him, and I am grateful for that. She tells me that her daddy in heaven is always with us. I can just imagine his radiant smile as he hears her say those words. This brings me to my most important point. It is our duty to keep these men and women alive and continue to speak their names. Adlai Stevenson once said, "Patriotism is not short outbursts of emotion, but the tranquil and steady dedication of a lifetime." I understand it can be uncomfortable, and indeed sometimes it is difficult to find the words, but we owe it to them. We must carry them with us. How do we do that, you ask? We speak their names, and often. We live out our days living a life that is worthy of their sacrifice. This is how we truly honor the lives that they have so selflessly given. We find purpose and meaning in each day and give gratitude for our time here. We love our people and hold them tight, remembering that our tomorrows are not promised. You see, eventually, all of us here will be dust in the wind, but it is our hope that others who will come after us will continue this day of remembrance, hopefully meeting here, together, joining to remember all of those who have come before us and sacrificed. I couldn't help but thinking this thought as I drove by the Fredericksburg National Cemetery, and the beautiful luminaria lit up the hillside to honor each and every soldier who lay to rest there. Service members from a distant war who have never been forgotten. We must remember them all. Each and every one of these men and women have their own story. They will not be forgotten as long as we are here and breathing, and teaching our children to continue this legacy is our duty. I'll leave you with a quote from John F. Kennedy. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter the words, but to live by them. Thank you.
It is an absolute honor to stand here on behalf of my husband, First Lieutenant Matthew Davis. He didn't die overseas. He was killed defending us stateside. He was, he was killed by a drunk driver in a police chase. We would later come to find out that that drunk driver was his Marine, and he was trying to stop him from barreling through a parking lot full of other Marines and sailors who were just celebrating the Marine Corps birthday. As Taylor already mentioned, President John F. Kennedy once said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." I'd like to ask that today and every day we display our gratefulness for the sacrifices of patriots our patriots have made on domestic and foreign soils alike, and honor them through actions. I encourage each of you to come up to this memorial and not just read, but feel these names engraved in stone. Go home and learn about these warriors. They are more than just black lettering and granite. It is my sincerest hope that as each of you move forward with your day, you are filled with the peace that all of the names on these pillars fought to defend. May we never become complacent to the cost of our freedoms. Thank you tremendously for hosting me today.